we get to go through all this again. Okay, and at that point, we could be asking all the detailed questions on it. In fact, the attorney for the Tarantino group, I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up too, it was very clear to me as I'm looking at all this, a no vote is not going to stop the proposal from coming forward. It might look different, it might have a different dimension to it. It doesn't stop them because the proposal that they have fits the definition of conditional use within an IPS. Okay, so if you have any thoughts that a no vote means it doesn't happen, well, I think they already indicated that's not the case. Okay, something's going to come forward for us to review. All right. Actually, when I was looking at this, the biggest concern that I had, and when Mary had the map up, is we have a lot of parcels on that land. It's a patchwork mess. And the fact that we have inconsistencies between the plan, the land use plan and the rezoning or the zoning codes is problematic, okay? It shouldn't be that way, but for whatever reason, and we don't know why it happened, it's a mess, all right? The concern I have by, if we say no and leaving it this way, is we have many separate parcels. And it leaves open the opportunity at some point for pieces to be sold off. And I'm not saying that Tarantino Group would do it. It could be if their proposal ends up being denied for cause, whoever is up next is what we have to be worried about. So whatever proposal's there, that's what we have to be thinking about is the land use of that overall property, the 18 acres, in my view, my opinion, having one property without all the parcels part of there gives us more control over that. Because anybody who would want to take it in the future and try and parcel it up, they gotta come before us. They have to come before the board. So it gives the village a lot more control over that property if it's one unified parcel as opposed to, what, 8, 10 different parcels, okay? So remember, tonight, and I'm speaking out to the commission, tonight the vote, the decisions on all three of these is land use. It is not supposed to be with any particular developer in mind. I know we're talking about it because of Capri, but the purpose of today is to talk about land use, okay? So we gotta keep this straight in terms of what we're voting for.
At the last meeting, though.
Excuse me, it's our turn to talk. We've listened to you guys for months now. It's our time.
That's your job.
Please, I respected everything you said every single time, and I listened with courtesy. I appreciate the same back.
I just asked why we're not discussing.
Yes, this is
not
not
back and
interactive
forth.
at this point, ma'am, I'm
You
sorry.
know it.
Go ahead.
Thanks. You know, I appreciate what you just said, but you know, at the same time, there was a key point made for me tonight that I did not realize, and that is if we say no to the rezoning, the project could go forward without the facade of the church being repurposed. And I think that that's a key point that we need to really understand, because I would hate to see this project go forward losing the memorial garden and the facade of the church. So that's a big thing for me to try to wrestle with. And I'm glad that they made that point tonight, because I don't think any of us in the room realized that until tonight. Thank you.
Joe, just one thing though. I think the assumption is that they can move forward just because this is an allowed conditional use. That is true to the point that it is an allowed conditional use, but still subject to conditions. And if in fact there's a determination made here that for the variety of reasons that appear in your ordinance, that this particular use does not cohabitate with what's around it, you might still vote that down. So it's not an automatic just because it's a conditional use. Don't forget the condition piece of that.
I wanted to clarify one other point too, and that is that the church could be repurposed on other real estate. It's not the only location where that repurposing can happen. Where they propose to put it is a place where the rezoning is being requested.
Mary, getting back to, well, kind of twofold, both on what Craig said and getting back to the land use. We did at the last meeting ask for more information, and it was to be approved that that information can be factored into the proposed change of the land use. Getting back to the presentation from Capri now, nothing gives you the warm and fuzzies like being held hostage as a board saying something's gonna be run down your throat regardless of what you vote. There was a, I believe, discrepancy in one of their presentations where they said if we vote no, that all we would lose is 3 cottages and a couple stories off the main one. I believe, if you could clarify, the parcels on Wisconsin Ave were left off of their map, which I think would put the front condominium or apartment complex in jeopardy. Is that correct, if that's not approved? Because that looks like a big key parcel of property there that we're talking about changing the land.
Those 2 parcels are included in their drawing.
No, on this slide,
Yes.
they don't have them down.
They aren't individual parcels. They aren't separate parcels.
Correct, and neither would be the one at the top, but they included that as eliminating a cottage.
Those are zoned IPS. The 2
No,
down on
no,
Wisconsin
I
Avenue.
think we're,
It's the land use that's inconsistent.
yeah, we're the yellow at the bottom,
Correct.
and then I see the 7 up top,
Yes.
and then they also eliminated the other part above that, which is a parcel that is split and it's land use. So I'm just trying to get clarification on whose map is more accurate here.
So if
Because
you
we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels that need to be changed for land use, correct?
Yes,
Is this land use or zoning?
this is land use.
Because,
Let me
well,
bring the
yeah,
zoning, or bring the zoning.
so getting back to what Commissioner Zompis said, was that if we vote no, based off what Capri said, we lose the church facade or whatever. Well, wouldn't that also include if these parcels down here off of Wisconsin Avenue, if a no vote? Why are we shaking our head no? No, these ones off of Wisconsin are not IPS right now.
If you vote no on the land use, those parcels are still zoned IPS. The 2
Why-
down in front.
What's the color difference then on the land use plan?
That's the land use. There's an
That's the land
inconsistency
use.
between land use
That's
and
what I'm
zoning.
saying.
Right.
These.
Right. There's
I
zoning,
track what you're saying, Jim. And we've had this conversation at a staff level. As a matter of practice, now that we know this to be the case, that the zoning is not consistent with the underlying land use, if the process doesn't complete itself and bring those 2 into sync as a part of this proposal, staff will come back to the planning commission and say, we're gonna recommend that you take action now to get these 2 in sync, to get these 2 parcels in sync. Either you're gonna change the land use to residential all the way across that frontage, or you're gonna change it to institutional all the way across that frontage and match the zoning to that. But as it stands right now, they have underlying land use is residential, but the zoning takes precedence. The zoning has precedence over that land use, and so they could propose the institutional use over the entire Wisconsin Ave frontage.
So the land use is a formality, basically, is what you're saying. in order-
Not usually, almost never. However, in a case like this, where the 2 got out of sync somehow, the zoning takes precedence.
Restate what you said, Mary, you would vote no this evening, you would recommend that it immediately comes back for this board
If you
to clean it up?
If you vote in opposition to modifying the land use designation for those 2 rectangles down in front on Wisconsin Avenue, if you don't support modifying that land use as part of this process with Capri, at some point in the future, staff will bring that back to you because we now are aware of it. And say, you've got a situation here where your land use and your zoning are not in sync. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to get it all in institutional? Do you want to put it all in residential? One way or another, it's got to align.
At an earlier meeting like this, we had a lot of comments from citizens, and it was made more than, comment was made more than once that when the land was first donated to the church, there was a provision that if the church gave it up, that it would revert to single family. And my question for maybe Mark or Scott or anybody up here is there any documentation of it? Is there a deed restriction on this land?
The village hasn't done any title work to determine the history on that, so I can't really answer that.
So
However, I would imagine that Tarantino and their group, before they ever submitted an offer, would have looked at, gotten title work done, and would have looked at for those kinds of issues. So I would be surprised to find that. Is it possible though? Yes.
And, I mean, if we had that documentation, it would certainly be easier to reject this whole project outright, but.
Well, I suspect
Without
they
that-
wouldn't have brought it this far had there been anything like that.
Okay.
Because there's too much at stake for them financially to have done that.
Sure. Well, I personally am not, too concerned with the, duplexes out there, although, as I mentioned in an earlier agenda item, I prefer single family. I'm not too concerned with the clubhouse and the assisted living and the memory care. It's pretty far back from the others. I am concerned with this multifamily 4-story building right on Wisconsin Avenue that is just inharmonious with the neighborhood. They said if we don't get the land use change, they build it anyway at 3 stories instead of 4 stories. Well, I think 3 stories would be better than 4 stories, but I don't like it at all. I've been a member of this commission for over 25 years. And one thing that I've been consistent on is I've never given much sympathy to NIMBYs. In this case, however, I think the neighbors have brought up some valid points.
I'd just like to say that, to the commission, that we sat here and not too long ago, tonight, we just told the guy that we don't want multifamily, we want single-family residential in a parcel that could conceivably handle 2 side-by-side buildings, a side-by-side building. I'm not real up on changing any zoning from single residential to IPS. I don't like changing single residential to anything but single residential and keeping it that way. Unless there has to be some mitigating circumstances that it has to be done, I am not, because whatever, if the vote goes to approve this land use plan, the next one for the rezoning would have to be the same. It would have to be approved to be rezoned from residential to IPS, just to keep things straight. I've had that discussion this afternoon with staff, and so because of that, I'm not in favor of this land use plan as it's presented. Plus, with all the information that we received, that we asked for, there's so much here that is just not, it doesn't have all the answers. There are not all the answers. There's a lot of questions, a lot of things left open. They said, yeah, the water for the fire hydrants are fine, but then in the document here, it says they don't have any way of knowing if the volume and how much storage and that will be enough. Well, you can't have it both ways, gentlemen. It's either you don't have enough or you have enough, so. I'm not in favor of it. Is there any other questions or comments? Do I look for a motion? I will not make a motion, but I will vote on it.
I will make a motion to disapprove
Deny.
deny the land use.
Seconded.
On the grounds for that?
Inharmonious with the area, and I also have health, safety, and welfare concerns of the residents.
Can we throw, would you be open to throwing in all the unanswered questions?
My
Yes.
second was based off of inconclusive, results on the traffic and water studies.
Intensity of the development, if our infrastructure can handle it.
We have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand the motion? Normally I wouldn't do this, but roll call.
Commissioner Grabowski,
Nay. Oh, aye. We're denying, yes, aye.
Yes, for blood.
Yeah, sorry. I'll get you white out.
Commissioner Ryan Lang,
Aye.
Commissioner Eric Rogers,
Aye.
Commissioner Cheryl Mance,
aye.
Trustee Roberts,
You're gonna do Joe first?
oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Joe Zampa,
Nay.
Trustee Roberts,
Nay.
President Knudsen,
Aye. And the total is?
5 aye, 2 nay.
Okay. So it passes, so we've denied this. Please. Mark, do we need to move on to item 2 then?
You have to vote on each one of these.
I'm sorry?
You need a motion and a vote on each one of these applications.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay, item 5C, we moved from table, we did that. Review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the village board on the request for rezoning to change multiple land use within the Queen of Apostles congregation contingent ownership at and adjacent to 449 West Wisconsin Avenue, i.e. all or portions of village of Pewaukee tax parcels number 0893989, 0893056, 0893057, and a portion of the Newman property located at 463 High Street, i.e. village of Pewaukee tax parcel number 0893990, from R5 single family residential district to IPS institutional and public service district. The applicant is Tarantino and Company, Incio Wayne Wizazima. I know I'm killing that name, but I'm sorry. The property owners are Queen of Apostles Congregation and Robert and Gloria Newman. Is there any discussion? If there isn't, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to deny this request.
Second.
We have a motion to deny and a second. Further,
Grounds for that, again, are what?
Same as B, as 5B.
okay, roll call please.
Commissioner Grabowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Lang,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts, I'm sorry, Rogers,
Aye.
Commissioner Mance,
Aye.
Commissioner Zampa,
Nay.
Trustee Roberts,
Nay.
President Knudsen,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Joe, can you?
Motion is hereby approved.
Okay, Joe?
Joe is an
Joe was nay.
Okay, item 5D, we've already removed that. Review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the village board of a certified survey map request to consolidate the several parcels, PWDs 0893990, 0893988, 0893987, 0893989, 0893055, 0893056, 0893057, 0893923, and 0893013 to a 16.48 acre lot and a 1.71 acre outlot. The applicant is Tarantino and Company and C.O. Wayne Wertzema. The property owners are Queen of Apostles Congregation and Robert Lloyd Newman. The properties are currently zoned IPS Institutional Public Service District and or R5 Single Family Residential. Do I have any comments or a motion to?
I have a question, Mary, if, supposing we combine all these lots, would that exacerbate the problem of inconsistencies between the land use plan and the zoning?
No, it doesn't technically. It creates a situation where you've got multiple land use and zoning classifications over one parcel.
We've already got that.
We have that to some extent already. Now you would have the backward 7 is included, the sliver off of the Newman property to the north, and the 2 rectory pieces would now be inconsistent with the zoning IPS for the balance of the property. It's not unreasonable. It certainly can be done.
If we approve this, would this decrease the flexibility of some future developer?
No, it wouldn't.
I would think it maybe make it more.
It doesn't change the
Yeah,
flexibility
yeah.
at all. The conditions are exactly as they are. This isn't gonna make that property any more or less usable for anyone else down the pike.
It just eliminates one step in the process in the future. If another developer wanted to combine them all, so.
Potentially, you're assuming that another developer wants all that real
Right,
estate.
what
to be-
what if we combined all these and another developer didn't want all of it, but wanted part of it?
Well, now they're looking backwards at land divisions, and that may not all be possible, because some of those areas are legal non-conforming as to size. Thinking about the 2 rectory pieces, they may not be able to be re-split if they're less than 10,500 square feet in area.
So we lose flexibility in the future.
They may.
Because we have not approved the other 2, do I have a motion to send this forward?
Do you want Tim to review his report?
What's that?
Do you want Tim to review his reports on the CSM?
Sure.
Alright, so, I did do a technical review of the CSM. There are a number of minor, I would call minor technical items related to some conflicting numbers between the map and the legal description. I'm asking for additional dedication of right-of-way on Quinlan Drive. There's some symbolism that has to be added to it. And then we had to correct the name of the village clerk. Those are what I call more technical in nature. Typically, we allow things like that to go through. I think the larger item that I have a concern with is the cemetery is being split off as a separate parcel. Access to that parcel is off of Evergreen Lane, and it's 28.24 feet wide. And at this time, there really is no, given the land ownership, there's no parking, or the only parking associated with that cemetery would be on Evergreen Lane, shall we say. All the other parking would be private, it would be on the other parcel, which would potentially be a private owner of some sort at some point in time. So my concern is that there should be some type of easement to get to the cemetery beyond that, just that access off of Evergreen potentially. And, you know, consideration of where parking would be, whether the land gets developed or not gets developed, as to how do you get access to that parcel in the long term on that. So I'm recommending that no action be taken on the CSM until that issue is resolved.
Is that what you're thinking?
That's what you just said, that's what I'm recommending. No action be taken until that issue is resolved. Is that what you said?
I'm sorry?
Did you say your recommendation is no action be taken until that issue is resolved?
Well, it would be, we were just talking here whether there's a timeline on that as far as whether we should be approving or denying this at this time. And I can't recall the timeline for CSM approvals.
I think it's past that.
It's past the time that we had to.
Based on the emergency application date, Mary, do you know when that was? Back in May. Unless the applicant's willing to give us an extension to address those issues.
I'm
Yeah,
okay, Mr. Blum, it hasn't,
My concern is with the statutory timeline for automatic approval of the CSM, are you willing to give us an extension to address the issues Mr. Barbeau just mentioned?
well, it sounds like the timeline's already lapsed. It
It
was
may
submitted in
be,
May.
and I have to check when the date was that you applied.
May 22nd.
May 22nd? All right, we'll have to review that issue then. But at this point, the recommendation you're receiving from the engineer is that he wants to see corrections to that. So, I think the motion then would be to deny at this point. And it can be applied then, be based upon the engineer's comments.
So we're gonna make a motion to deny this?
Based upon the engineer's comments, yes.
I'll make a motion to deny this, CSM.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. I don't think I have to ask this question of the commission, but I will ask. We do have one other thing on tonight's agenda. Would you like to have that put off till the next meeting?
Motion to table 5A.
Suggest to make a motion to table it.
Motion to table 5A.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
You don't.
You don't need a roll
Just all.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Table. All right, so last thing on the agenda tonight is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting law, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Speakers are asked to use the podium and state your name and address for the record. Please line up if anybody wants to make a comment.
Tom Calder, 504 High Street. I want to thank the commission for listening to the citizens and the taxpayers of this community. You also got some work in front of you. I don't think this is over. You've got to get these maps so that they are in sync with one another. I think there should be a resolution that comes forth from the village board that emphasizes the need to keep and find and identify future and existing single-family homes and sites and zoning in this community. We've got the property across from Pick and Save, yet to be, it's still open to be zoned. The Brand Farm, out behind to the west, or to the west of where Costco is, back behind your development where you live, Eric. But you guys got a lot of work to do. You gotta get the staff engaged. You gotta get to work. But you listen to the people, and that's gotta be cleaned up there. We need the best. We don't approve just because we don't know what, if and what we might ever get. That's not an excuse to vote. Get the best. We need it for our tax dollars. We need it for our tax base. You need to look at the revenue that can be generated from any development. I saw $280,000. I think of a multifamily development and what that puts on the demands of public services in this community. More EMS calls, more fire calls, more police calls. A full-time employee added to our village budget is about $100,000 with wages and benefits. I look at where the fires have been in the last 5 years in this community. Sunny Ridge, multifamily. Park Hill, multifamily. There's no question, there's a clear record that has high demand, and we only need single-family homes. Good night, thank you.
Kathleen Matrice, 1150 East Wisconsin Avenue, Pewaukee. I want to first thank you for the good discussion that you had. It went round and round and really answered a lot of questions and what the decisions that you have to make, and I appreciate that. But this time I'm here about the Riverside Drive property. I was real excited, even with that plan that the gentleman had. It has potential. Thank you, President Knudsen, for addressing the single-family issue. I think that proposal that he had up there, if it was just all single-family, will be perfect. I mean, when it was the drug rehab thing, I think I had spoke and said, how about residential? And that was actually what I had in my mind, a vision. And it doesn't really affect us where my husband and I live, because we're on Wisconsin Avenue, but it is where we go for walks and things like that. And yeah, I think if we can stay focused on that, that would be wonderful. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Ed Hill, 303 Sunset Drive. With regards to 303 Sunset Drive, first of all, don't forget there's also a river west of this property.